Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another Mono Black Coffers control video. I have made a few more adjustments to the deck list. I've changed around and swapped up some of what the removal is. The biggest change in the main deck is I added a Sign in Blood post-testing kind of in the stream that we did this week, or last week. If y'all haven't seen it, I played 3 or so matches, and I did a lot of discussion during that video about what some of the tech choices are in this particular style of the deck. And the main swap up in the sideboard is I've added some Feed the Swarms for more early removal. Also some enchantment removal might be kind of important. And Leyline of the Void is now the Grave Hate of choice. I've dropped the Surgical Plan and the like the Nile Spell Bombs. I actually probably should get rid of the Cling to Dust, but it's kind of good gaining life versus aggro, so I'm not super 100% on that. I also cut the... So I don't know if I just mentioned this. I cut the Expedition map, and I just added another swamp over that. We had a few hands with Expedition map where it was like, that felt like it really should be another land. And really, we only want more basic swamps at this point. We have enough non-swamplands in the form of Coffers and Castle Lochthwain that occasionally we get stuck with really interesting openers. I have one more kind of radicalization or reimagining of this deck in mono black that I want to do after testing this league. And that's going to involve dropping the curve a ton and not playing the gigantic finishers and only playing scalable finishers. So I'll be interested to see what happens with that, because that should actually protect us from the issues we were seeing with Damping Sphere and the one time we got Blood Mooned with some decent backup to the Blood Moon. But yeah, I'll see you guys in round 1. Alright, we're on the play for round 1, and we got a lot of removal and eventually a Planeswalker, so hopefully this works out for us. One of the things that happened when we were streaming this deck was Erebos' Intervention Graveyard targeting mode turns out to be really important versus a lot of decks. Crashing Footfalls, huh? Exiled to Gemstone Caverns. This is probably the Cascade deck. It could be Electro Dominance, which means I should not have yielded there, because if they did play Crashing Footfalls, I'd want to dismember, but... Alright, well, we draw Cabal Coffers, so play Urborg. Pass the turn. So Cabal Coffers with Urborg only starts to produce extra mana at turn 4 or 4 lands. On 3, it's just parity. We untap. We draw Maze Mind Tome. Play a Swamp. I'm going to leave up the full casting cost Dismember here. Opponent flashes in a Brazen Borrower. Alright. Let's go ahead and cast Erebos' Intervention X2. Gain a little bit of life. Take care of the Brazen Borrower. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Forest, and they pass. We draw Thoughtseize. Play Cabal Coffers. Add mana. Thoughtseize. Opponent is going to cast Force of Negation. We're alright with that. Play Maze Mind Tome. Second Force of Negation? Pitching Brazen Borrower. I don't know about that one, opponent. We'll pass. They're down to 1 card in hand. We have 2 excellent removal spells and Ob Nixilis, which is a pseudo-removal spell. So they're not doing anything here. I guess that means we're going to try and land Ob Nixilis. The longer we wait, the more likely it is they draw a Violent Outburst. So play Ob. They have another counterspell. Subtlety. Alright, they play Subtlety. We'll put Ob Nixilis on top. Oh, whoops. Kill Subtlety. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw. Then they pass. We untap. Redraw Ob. Play Ob. Opponent cracks Wooded Foothills. Okay. So they got a Cryptic. Alright. Pass the turn. Opponent had a lot of counterspells, but they still don't have any action. They play a Scalding Tarn, and they suspend Crashing Footfalls. So we just need to draw any threat in 4 turns. Baleful Mastery's okay. It's another answer to a Rhino. Opponent untaps, Crashing Footfall ticking down. They draw. And they pass. We untap, draw another Baleful Mastery, pass the turn. Crashing Footfalls ticks down to 2. They drop to 3. They play an island, and they pass. We untap, draw Bloodchief's Thirst. Alright, well that'll take care of a token as well. Pass the turn. Crashing Footfalls ticks down to 1. Opponent draws, and they pass. We untap, draw Swamp. Well, that's more mana. Play it. Pass the turn. Alright, Crashing Footfalls coming off Suspend. They get some Rhinoceri. Yeah, let's cast a big Erebos' Intervention. I suspect if they have a counterspell, this will draw it. Okay, they don't. We untap, draw Castle Lochthwain, play the castle, Bloodchief's Thirst. 4 mana. Opponent is going to Cryptic. Then in response, just Baleful Mastery. And use our floating mana to draw a card. We lose 2 life, but this should be fine. Another Bloodchief's Thirst is okay. It deals with all of their threats anyway. We have Baleful Mastery for 2 in a case of an emergency, such as if our opponent was to play Jace the Mind Sculptor. Okay, we no longer have access to that because they iced our Urborg. They must have drawn the ice off of... what's it called? Cryptic, otherwise they would have iced Cabal Coffers on our upkeep, I think. We untap, we draw Inquisition, fire off Inquisition, Brazen Borrower, Cryptic Command, Subtlety. I'll discard Brazen Borrower, activate Coffers, kill Bone Crusher Giant, we take damage. Opponent may Cryptic this. They crack Scalding Tarn. They get an island. They could have just tapped it for black. I guess they don't want to draw any more lands, so they cast Cryptic. Alright, we'll full price Baleful Mastery. We do lose life this way, but then we're completely empty-handed for drawing off of Castle Lochthwain. So opponent untaps. They have Subtlety. They play a land, and they pass. We untap. Draw Swamp. Play a Swamp. Draw off of Lochthwain. We get Liliana. Dreadhorde General. So attempt to play Liliana. She's gonna get Subtletied. Yep. We'll put her back on top of the deck, because she's a pretty good draw. Opponent's down to only 1 card in hand. They crack their fetch land. They probably are gonna crack their other fetch land. No? Okay. They untap, they draw, they suspend a Crashing Footfalls. Well, they're going to run out of counterspells here sooner or later. We untap, activate Lochthwain when we have 0 cards in hand, then draw for turn. Ooh, Worst Fears. Okay, play Liliana, playing around Mana Leak, not that they would be playing Mana Leak. Make a zombie. Pass the turn. When it untaps, Crashing Footfalls ticks down. When it goes to combat, they're going to attack Liliana. That's fine. Then they are Shardless Agent into Crashing Footfalls. Alright. We untap. Upkeep, draw, Thoughtseize. Alright, let's Thoughtseize our opponent, see what the last card in their hand is. Mountain. Okay, well, we're not particularly scared of a mountain. Make a zombie. And here's where Worst Fears gets really good. Because this is basically a mono-black Time Warp, which is awesome. Draw an extra card. An Urborg. Alright, pass the turn to our opponent. No attacks. They crack Scalding Tarn on their end step, so we can't fetch and shock to deal extra damage to them. They untap. Suspend. They draw Shardless Agent. I think I do actually play Shardless Agent here. Cascade. Okay, they got nothing left, so that's all of their Crashing Footfalls. Play this mountain. Tap them out. Okay, we have a few draws to try and find something to deal with this. We untap. We draw Mastermind's Acquisition, and we found it. So... let's see, how much mana do we have here? 8, 13, 14. So I'm going to down-tick Liliana to 1, and we're going to sack 2 creatures to draw 2 cards. Opponent's going to sack their Shardless Agents. Let's see what we draw first. Inquisition, Inquisition. Alright, that's not really what I wanted. So I'm probably just going to have to go get Damnation. I could get Torment of Hailfire, actually. Yeah, that kills them. Let's get Torment of Hailfire. Play a new Urborg. Keep the new one. Then Mastermind's Acquisition, getting a card outside the game. Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the X. Yeah, they can't survive that. And this is better than Consume Spirit. Consume Spirit is why we still have Consume Spirit in the main deck, because it kind of acts like another Erebos' Intervention, but it can also kill our opponent. Having this card in the sideboard, though, means that we can actually just, like, kill them. Okay, so versus this opponent, I do want Collective Brutality, because I kind of want to max out on Duress effects. I may want Feed the Swarm as another removal spell. Baleful Mastery, the Exile doesn't seem to be as necessary here, so I'm actually going to cut the Baleful Masteries for Feed the Swarms, because these can kill tokens and we don't lose any life. Liliana the Last Hope seems really bad in this particular matchup. I may want Thought Distortion in the main deck. I don't think we need to hate on their grave. So I'll bring in Thought Distortion. I'm going to cut another Baleful Mastery, and I guess this Sign in Blood. We'll try it like this. Well, we've got a bunch of mana, but we also have a bunch of Urborgs. I think I have to keep this. Consuming Vapors is really good against my opponent because they make a bunch of creatures with 4 toughness. And this can answer 1 Crashing Footfalls by itself. Or it can't, because my opponent is playing Leyline. I'm glad I brought in Feed the Swarm, but we're going to need to draw stuff. Opponent did mulligan to, I mean, effectively 5, right? So play a Swamp. Thoughtseize is not what we want here. Opponent plays an island, then passes. We draw Swamp. Play Urborg. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They shock Steam Vents. They crack Wooded Foothills. They shock Breeding Pool. Okay, this is a huge problem. We need to draw removal right away. I didn't bring in Damnation, I don't think. Erebos' Intervention helps a little bit. I can kill the Shardless Agent and gain a couple of life. Oh, that's not what I wanted. But we are going to need to draw either Feed the Swarm, I think ideally, or something else. Opponent's going to attack us for 8. We go to 14, we untap. We draw Thought Distortion, which targets our opponent as well. Play Castle Lochthwain. I can't activate it, or I'll just die. Opponent has a Violent Outburst? Alright, that beats us. Yep. Okay. Well, that is unfortunate, but I kept a hand that didn't do a lot. I guess I do have to bring in Damnation, probably over Consuming Vapors. Because Consuming Vapors targeting my opponent, if they're going to bring in Leyline, is going to be quite bad. That also means that Collective Brutality is quite a bit worse. I mean, so is Inquisition and Thoughtseize, but... So I'll just bring in the Damnations so I don't have that problem. I'll cut the other Collective Brutality, and bring in Gonti. Do I want Gonti, actually? No, I'll bring Sign in Blood back in, because I might need to cycle early. I think that was a little bit of a fluke, because normally we have a lot of removal that will be relevant. Okay, this hand does nothing. This hand is a lot better, but we do need to draw another land. I'm going to put back Consume Spirit. Hopefully my opponent does not start on a Leyline. Or if they do, at least we have a land. So opponent starts with Gemstone Caverns, exiling Bone Crusher Giant. We get to lead on Inquisition. Violent Outburst, Shardless Agent, Brazen Borrower. I think we take Violent Outburst because the instant speed makes it slightly more difficult for us to deal with. Shardless Agent is a creature, true. So I guess that contributes more to their board state. Alright, we'll take Shardless Agent. Pass the turn, but we need to, absolutely must, draw another land that isn't Cabal Coffers. So opponent plays Scalding Tarn, and then they pass. We untap. We draw a Thoughtseize. This also technically might work. Borrower, Borrower. Well, honestly, I'm not that scared of Borrower. I'm more scared of the tokens. So we'll take Violent Outburst. We might have to painfully answer one of these Borrowers with Dismember, but... Opponent cracks Scalding Tarn. They get an island. They untap. They play a mountain. And they pass. We untap. We draw Obnixilis, which will be good if we draw more lands. I'm glad I added a 23rd land to this list, but I'm kind of sad we don't have more cycling. The only removal spell with cycling in Black and Modern, I believe, is Easy Prey, which would not do a lot of good in most matchups. We're going to dismember this immediately. Pass the turn. Opponent is holding Brazen Borrower, 2 unknown cards. Opponent just suspends Crashing Footfalls, which means they're not playing the Borrower this turn. They're going to ice our Swamp, that's fine. We probably weren't doing anything this turn anyway, but Urborg is a massive help. Pass the turn. Any Swamp next turn means we could get to Obnixilis Reignited. Opponent suspends another Crashing Footfalls. Okay, we draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Play Ob. Thankfully, the tokens off of Crashing Footfalls do not have haste. They're not like regular suspend creatures. Okay, I like increasing Ambition. As long as my opponent does not have a counter spell for any of our big plays that are coming up, we should be fine. So opponent untaps, Crashing Footfalls on 3 and 2 respectively. Opponent finally hits another land. They're holding an unknown card. We untap. We draw Inquisition. Play Ob. If it's a counterspell, it's a counterspell. Okay. Uptick Ob. I'd really like to hit a land. Perfect. Let's go Inquiring. They stomp our face. Okay. I'm actually glad they did not stomp Ob. But they may not view him as a threat. Okay. Crashing Footfall sticks down to 2 and 1. Opponent has 1 unknown card in hand. It is a land. So it looks like their plan is to flash in Brazen Borrower on the end step. We untap. Draw. Swamp. Uptick Ob to 7. Draw another Swamp. Okay, so if we play a Swamp, then we can Increasing Ambition and we still have 4 mana left over. What can I get for 4 mana or less that will be really good here? I have a land drop next turn to make. I could get a Damnation, and that would be reasonable. I could actually just go get another Cabal Coffers, and that way we can flash back next turn and get a bunch of crazy stuff. I don't have any instant speed removal. The tokens don't have haste. Let's get another Coffers. Then we'll just pass. Worst case scenario, to buy 1 turn, we could kill almost all of their creatures with like Feed the Swarm, Bloodchief's Thirst, Obnixilis downtick. Okay. Crashing Footfalls on 1, casting the other one. They're going to hit us for 3. We go to 6. Opponent decides against whatever they were going to play there. We untap. We draw Worst Fears. Play Cabal Coffers. How much mana do I have? 15. I have 15 mana. So I can cast Worst Fears or I can cast Increasing Ambition, but I can't cast both. I don't know what's in my opponent's hand. Okay, I think I have a plan. So first things first, attempt to cast Worst Fears. If they have a counterspell, they're countering this. They don't. They just scoop. Wow! We win the match. Just like we drew it up. I'll see you guys in round 2. Alright, we're on the play, and I wish we had more interaction, but I don't really want to give up this hand right now. Hopefully Mazemind Tome can get us to whatever we need to combat what our opponent is doing. Thus, also being on the play, like having the tempo advantage here is nice, especially if this is control, which it appears to be. I got a feeling this is going to be a very long game. I'll probably need to restart the client during sideboarding, but I'm also going to try and play fast this entire time. So opponent plays a Marsh Flats on their end step. Consume Spirit to the bottom. Untap. We draw Cabal Coffers. So play an Urborg. Pass the turn. Okay. Opponent's turn. They crack Marsh Flats. They get a Watery Grave tapped, so they are Esper. They untap. Ancestral Visions is ticking down. They play a Polluted Delta. And they are passing. So draw a card. Another Swamp. Untap. Draw Castle Lochthwain. Play Cabal Coffers. Play Maze Mind Tome. Draw a card. Okay. Pass the turn. Opponent cracks Polluted Delta. Ah, they are many colors. I wonder if this is Suspend shenanigans then. 4 mana, whatever they're casting. Gaedron Dihada. Alright. So we need an answer to a Planeswalker. Stop on our opponent's end step, we'll scry a Swamp to the bottom. Untap. Scry. Gain life. Worst Fears. If I play a Swamp, that puts us at 5 mana. Cabal Coffers, that's 7. We can't quite cast Worst Fears. As insane as it would be, probably, here. We gotta put that to the bottom. Draw another Maze Mind Tome. Play a Swamp. Activate Coffers, play Ob. Draw a card. Inquisition. Alright. Inquisition. Opponent has Prismatic End, Ancestral Visions, Kolaghan's Command, and Snapcaster Mage, along with a Teferi. And they're drawing 3 cards this turn. So they're playing a bunch of colors to power up Prismatic End. But they probably don't have all 5. I'm going to take Prismatic Ending from them. Pass the turn. So they can give their Planeswalker here protection from Ob. And they're probably playing Teferi this turn. If they don't play Teferi, it's because they didn't draw a land. Okay, there's Teferi. They uptick Teferi. They uptick Gaedron. Okay, they get to untap some lands. Let's go ahead and scry. Swamp to the bottom. Untap. Scry on our upkeep. Bloodchief's Thirst to the top. We draw Bloodchief's Thirst. Draw another card. Collective Brutality, okay. So... play Swamp. Duress. Opponent counterspells the Duress. Then we'll add a bunch of mana. We kill Teferi, I think. And then I'm going to use Erebos' Intervention to exile my opponent's grave. Oh, I can't exile that many. We'll exile everything that isn't a land. I miscounted my mana. Okay. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They suspend Ancestral. So we know they have Kolaghan's Command and Snapcaster Mage. We untap. We draw Baleful Mastery. Uptick Ob Nixilis. We need to draw Hand Hate. I guess a redundant answer to their Planeswalker is also, like, acceptable. Play Castle Lochthwain. Add a bunch of mana. Bloodchief's Thirst. They're going to Archmage's Charm. So let's go ahead and respond with a full-priced Baleful Mastery. Okay. Crisis averted. If we can alt Ob Nixilis, we will be just fine. Because they need to draw cards to win. And Ob will punish them enough. And it's not something they can answer. They'll probably have to use Kolaghan's Command to stop Ob from ulting. Opponent draws up to 6. They add blue. Cryptic, they're going to bounce. Not that often you see a main phase Cryptic bounce. Let's draw with Maze Mind Tome. Worm Coil. Well, there's nothing we can do about that. They play a Plains. And they suspend another Ancestral. Alright, we untap. We draw a Thoughtseize. Fire off a Thoughtseize. Damn, Kolaghan's Command, and Snapcaster Mage. I'm gonna take Snapcaster from them. Add a bunch of mana. Play Ob. Uptick Ob. Fire off Inquisition. Take K Command. So now my opponent only has a bunch of irrelevant removal. Then we will play a Maze Mind Tome. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent has a bunch of Ancestral Visions that are still a long ways off. They drew a land. They crack Polluted Delta for a Hallowed Fountain tapped to thin their deck. On their end step, draw an extra card. We get another Cabal Coffers. Untap. I'm going to scry. Thoughtseize to the bottom. We know what's in their hand. We draw Inquisition. Uptick Ob. We draw Increasing Ambition, which I think actually ends the game. Because if I have... I can Increasing Ambition, and I'll still have 13 mana left. I can go get Mastermind's Acquisition. It's pretty close, actually. Hang on. Yeah, okay. So, Increasing Ambition. We'll go get Mastermind's Acquisition. Then we can Mastermind's Acquisition for, like, Emrakul. Torment of Hailfire, would that kill them here? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. So 7, it would not kill them. It would be close, but it wouldn't kill them. We'll get Emrakul. Then I'm going to flashback Increasing Ambition, and we're just going to get some, like, Thoughtseizes to protect our Emrakul. Well, we have Inquisition, so I'll get another Call Coffers, and that'll just ensure I can do it. Alright, pass the turn. Opponent, Ancestral Visions ticking down. Unless they have Upheaval, I think we're fine. We untap. We draw Consume Spirit. This is also reasonable. Untap Ob. Or Uptick Ob, I mean. Fourth Cabal Coffers. Play Cabal Coffers. Add a crap load of mana. Inquisition. Opponent did have the counterspell. Thoughtseize to double check. Take Damn. We'll just Consume Spirit them. We don't need our opponent to know we're actually playing Emrakul. In fact, that might actually be relevant later. So we'll just Consume Spirit for 20. 1. Alright, well we grinded out the control deck. So versus the control deck, I definitely want Collective Brutalities. I definitely want Feed the Swarms. I definitely want a Gonti. They are playing Snapcasters, so like Leyline could matter. Erebos' Intervention matters a bit less, as does Liliana the Last Hope. Especially if they're playing Dihada as their like primary threat. Her ult does nothing if we have nothing to put corruption counters on. Or very minimal, I should say. Thought Distortion, I'm going to put in the main deck. Our worst removal spell at this point, I believe, is actually Erebos' Intervention. I'm going to go down to 1 just because, like, the life gain could... No. I'm going to cut Dismember and Erebos' Intervention and Consuming Vapors. We brought in Thought Distortion. We brought in our Collective Brutalities as more duresses. We could bring in Leyline of the Void. I don't think Damnation is necessary. Cling to Dust may or may not matter. And we're going to try it like this. We have Feed the Swarm just in case they have Leyline for all of our hand hate. Multiple Thoughtseize, multiple Collective Brutality gives us a long time to try and draw another land. Opponent starts by suspending Ancestral. We draw a Swamp right on cue. Begin with Thoughtseize. Opponent has Counter Squall and Fulminator. Take Counter Squall. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Ancestral Vision's ticking down. They play Misty. We untap. We draw. Increasing Ambition. Play a Swamp. We'll play around Censor, I guess. Thoughtseize. Opponent has As Foretold and Fulminator. So As Foretold is a way that they can cast their Ancestral Visions right on cue, but Fulminator hitting our Cabal Coffers is unacceptable right now. So pass the turn. We know what our opponent is doing next turn. We can keep hand checking as long as we need to for quite a while here. We'd like to get to where we can cast Gonti. They play Polluted Delta and they crack it immediately. They shock Watery Grave. They play As Foretold. We untap. Draw Consume Spirit. Play Cabal Coffers. Duress. They have Snapcaster. So they can Snapcaster Counter Squall next turn. Ancestral Vision's ticking down to 1. I would really like to draw an Urborg here. Opponent plays their Marsh Flats. We untap, we draw Worst Fears. It's not really what I asked for, we got a pass. Okay, opponent cracks Marsh Flats for a Blood Crypt tapped. They untap, they're going to reload with Ancestral Visions. Up to 5. We know they're holding Snapcaster, but we don't know anything else. Another Fulminator. That's unfortunate. Not the end of the world, but unfortunate. We draw Mastermind's Acquisition. Duress mode. Opponent cracks Polluted Delta. Shocks a Watery Grave. Counterspell? Yep. And they cast it with As Foretold. They didn't even need to fetch and shock. Pass the turn. Well, if we don't draw mana, then it's not gonna work. How am I 4 minutes behind my opponent on the clock already? Opponent plays a Teferi, they uptick. Okay, well, second Fulminator and an active Teferi probably means this game is a bust. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go to game 3, and I'm gonna restart the client in between rounds. The in-between round timer is separate from the actual rest of the game. Of course, it does make me re-sideboard if I restart that way, which is kind of irritating, but, you know, what can you do? So we're bringing in Thought Distortion, we'll bring in Feed the Swarm, Collective Brutality, drop Tribute to Hunger, Dismember, Consuming Vapors, Liliana the Last Hope. We do want Gonti. Dreadhorde General is actually not that great here either, but I'm trying to remember what else I had taken out. Yeah, I'll take out Dreadhorde General. Oh, I took out the Erebos' Interventions, what I did. Well, we'll try it like this instead. See if that makes any difference. I would like to play first. I will keep this. Let's see. If our opponent mulligans, our hand gets way better, especially on the draw. Or with them on the draw, because we can take their Ancestral Visions, which is kind of like duressing 3 cards. Lead on Inquisition. They have Counter Squall and Snapcaster, so take Counter Squall from them. Pass the turn. They untap. They play a Marsh Flats. We untap. We draw Inquisition. So, Inquisition again. Take Counterspell. Thoughtseize. Take Teferi. Pass the turn. We need to draw lands, though, now. Opponent fetches up a Hallowed Fountain. They play Watery Grave tapped. We untap. We draw another Castle Lockplane, which is a land. Pass the turn. I'd like to draw like Urborg into Cabal Coffers, which if I do draw an Urborg, I could, or any land for that matter, I could Mastermind's Acquisition for what I need less, or whatever I need else, but... Alright, pass the turn. Opponent still doesn't flash in Snapcaster. They play a Plains we didn't know about. We draw Thoughtseize. Well, if we're not doing anything else, we might as well Thoughtseize. Opponent might, like, Snapcaster Countersquall, I guess, just if that's their only other card, or they don't want us to see the rest of their hand. We lose 2 life either way, it's just this way we don't get to see what our opponent has. I'm not going to 2 mana hit the Snapcaster. I would cast it on a Planeswalker if they played a Planeswalker this turn. They go to combat, hit us for 2. They still only have 2 cards in hand. We untap. We draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Mastermind's Acquisition. We will get Urborg. Pass the turn. Opponent did not have a counterspell there, which is kind of important. Opponent plays a Watery Grave tapped. They're going to hit us for 2. We go to 12. Untap. We draw a Swamp. Play Urborg. Increasing Ambition. We'll get Cabal Coffers this time. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw a card up to 3. They don't have red mana. Okay, they can take out our Increasing Ambition, which is a bit unfortunate. We untap, but we got our tutors through before they were able to do that. We draw Erebos' Intervention. So play Cabal Coffers. And we don't have enough mana to do both, so cast Worst Fears. Okay, we gain control of them. They untap. They have Prismatic Ending. They draw a Mystic Gate. So exile their own Ashiok. White, blue... Oh, we can't actually exile their own Ashiok. We can exile their Snapcaster. Blue, white, black. Oh, no, we can. We can exile their Ashiok. Blue, black, white. See how good Worst Fears is? Okay, and their last card in hand is a Mystic Gate. We untap. We draw Thought Distortion. I do not want to activate Castle here, but I think I've gotta... Like, because we gotta try and draw something. Obnixilis is amazing. Uptick, draw card. Another Cabal Coffers, pass the turn. They play a Hallowed Fountain, which is not Mystic Gate. We untap. Draw Urborg. Uptick Ob. Liliana. Play Cabal Coffers. Activate Coffers. Play Liliana. Uptick. Get a Swamp. Pass the turn. The problem is if we go down to 2, our opponent has ways of making us lose 2 life. What we want is for them to run out a Snapcaster on something. They play a Hallowed Fountain, which is still not the Mystic Gate we know about. We untap. We draw a Swamp. Uptick Ob to 8. Bloodchief's Thirst. Uptick Liliana. I did that in the wrong order. Play a Swamp. Pass the turn. Given any target for this Erebos' Intervention, we can just gain 1,000,000 life. Opponent now has 1 card we don't know about. Fulminator. Fulminator is the only creature that we don't want to target with Erebos' Intervention. So we'll cast a Baleful Mastery. They'll take out a Coffers. Ultimately, this is fine. We untap. We draw another Baleful Mastery. We can Emblem to start killing them, I guess. Uptick Lily, get another Swamp. Alt Ob. I don't want to go to 2. Pass the turn. I just have nothing to target with this Erebos' Intervention. So opponent draws a card, they lose some life. But we are going to need a way to gain life. We untap, we draw Ugin. Oh, it's whenever any player draws a card. That's pretty cool. So, play a Swamp. Activate Cabal Coffers. Play an Ugin. Does my opponent have a counterspell? Snapcaster. Snapcaster's good here. Even if they do counter Ugin with counterspell. Because what I can do in response is gain more life than they will be able to deal with. So they have to counterspell the Ugin. Uptick Lily to 7, get another Swamp. Keep thinning our deck, pass the turn. Opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. And they scoop, they can't beat us. Nice! Alright, well I'll see you guys in round 3. Alright, we're on the draw for round 3. We only have 1 land against a Yorion deck, and we have an Inquisition. I think we can do better, so we're going to mulligan. This is not better. We're going to 5. Okay. I can work with this. We're going to put back Consume Spirit and Erebos' Intervention. We have pretty close to the ideal lands for this situation. Okay, this might be Control. If it is, I'm glad I kept the Thoughtseize. So lead on Swamp. Thoughtseize our opponent. Let's see what's going on here. It is, in fact, Control. Or at least, sort of. Take to Fairy. It might be, like, Tap Out, or it could be... it could be like a Death and Taxes style deck. We have seen that occasionally. Multiple Urborgs here is pretty good. So play an Urborg, opponent untaps. They play a Plains that we didn't know about. Probably playing out Sword here. Another Teferi. Okay. They're going to bounce the Wall of Omens. We untap. We draw Sign in Blood. So play Cabal Coffers. Let's go ahead and Sign in Blood. Get Maze Mind Tome and Liliana. I'm kind of happy with all the Edict effects we have right now. I'm going to play Prismatic Vista. Cracks Prismatic Vista. They're going to get a island. They uptick to Fairy to 2. They replay Wall of Omens. And they play another Wall of Omens. Okay. We untap. We draw Thoughtseize. Play another Cabal Coffers. Let's see how much mana we have. 6. So, play Liliana. Make a zombie. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a Field of Ruin. They uptick to Fairy to 3. They may just field a Cabal Coffers, which would be somewhat reasonable. We untap. We draw another Urborg. They could try and field Urborg. Activate Coffers. Thoughtseize. We're going to play Restoration Angel. Okay. Probably flicker in a wall. Then does Thoughtseize go off? It does. Supreme Verdict, Sword of Fire and Ice, Spreading Seas, and another Wall of Omens. I'm gonna take the sword, I think, that represents the most problems. Spreading Seas is annoying, but... Activate Coffers again, play Obnixilis. I did not properly clear out what my opponent has in hand, I think. Okay, down tick, kill Resto. Edict the board away, we draw a card. So opponent can, like, take out our Urborg and stop us from tapping for a bunch of mana, but we have 2 active Planeswalkers. Oh, they can animate Colonnade and kill one of them. So they play Prismatic Vista. Yeah, they're going to animate Colonnade. We cannot Tribute to Hunger because of Teferi. They're going to kill Liliana because she represents the most danger now. And they uptick Teferi to 4. We untap. We draw Bloodchief's Thirst, which is excellent. Draw an extra card. Another Obnixilis. So we have 6 mana. So we kill Teferi. Then play Maze Mind Tome. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw. Flooded Strand. They animate Colonnade. They're going to use this to kill Ob. They may even play Spreading Seas after the fact. Okay. Obnixilis down. They crack Flooded Strand. Getting an island. I think they Spreading Seas Urborg here if they're going to Spreading Seas a land. They do. Okay. So they draw a card. We scry on their end step. Another Maze Mind Tome to the bottom. Untap. Scry on our upkeep. Castle Lochthwain to the bottom. We draw a swamp, which is good. Play a new... Oh, crap. I didn't tap that one for mana. Play a new Urborg. Float a bunch of mana. Float a bunch of mana. Play Obnixilis. At least this way they can't just animate an attack to kill him. He'll survive at least one attack, and then we contribute to Hunger. We draw another Cabal Coffers. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a Mystic Gate. They're going to field our Urborg. Okay. Get a Swamp. They animate Colonnade. They hit Ob down to 1. Or 2. We untap. Draw Inquisition. Inquisition's a pretty good draw here. Draw an extra card. Baleful Mastery, I do like. Play a Swamp. Hand check. Another Teferi. Not too upset about Spreading Seas. So take Teferi. Pass the turn. If they fire up Colonnade again, we just Tribute to Hunger. They play a Flooded Strand, which is the card they drew. They're going to Spreading Seas a Cabal Coffers. This is fine. It is less than ideal, but it is fine. They play Sword. They play Wall. They crack Flooded Strand. They get a Hallowed Fountain untapped. And they are going to equip the Sword. I can let that go to gain 2 extra life off of Tribute. I'm actually, I think, gonna do that. So stop on my opponent's end step. Tribute to Hunger. Then we scry. Swamp. I do actually kind of want this Swamp. Untap. We draw the Swamp. Uptick Ob. We get an Ugin. Play a Swamp. I can turn 3 mana into 4. So then I have 7 mana this turn. Next turn I'll have a lot more. Okay, pass the turn. We leave up Maze Mind Tome activation and Baleful Mastery cast. Opponent plays another field. They play a Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. Stoneforge Mystic goes and gets Batterskull. They are going to equip Stoneforge Mystic with Sword. We have Ugin, so we don't really care. They're going to take out our Coffers, that's fine. Get a Swamp. Then they put Yorion in their hand. Okay, so they're passing. Draw a card. Gain a bunch of life. Thoughtseize. Untap. We draw a Swamp. Uptick Ob. We get Dismember. That changes things. I was thinking I was going to have to make a Masterminds acquisition play this turn, but what this means is we can play Ugin -2, and that gets rid of Spreading Seas. They can't kill anything with Colonnade unless they equip it, and we have Dismember. We know 3 of the 4 cards in their hand, which is Yorion, Batterskull, Supreme Verdict. But we need to keep up Dismember, because their best answer to any of our Planeswalkers right now is to animate Colonnade and then equip it, and we could kill it in response. Okay, they fire up Colonnade. Dismember. Any answer they have for that, if they do have one, would probably cause them to tap Colonnade as well. So even if they do... Okay, they float white. Equip trigger fails. They play Skyclave Apparition, which does nothing. No targets, our stuff's too expensive. We untap. We draw Castle Lochthwain. Uptick Ob. Consuming Vapors? That's pretty sick. Play a Swamp. How much mana do I have? 6, 10, 14. Okay. Uptick Ugin, kill Skyclave. Thoughtseize our opponent. We don't worry about Path at all. We don't care about Verdict. Batterskull is the most annoying thing. Yeah, they just scoop. They can't beat it. It's just too good. Alright, I want Gonti in this matchup. They don't play counterspells, they play a lot of Planeswalkers. It's possible we want Feed the Swarm to be able to answer maybe a Leyline, so that our hand hate still matters. Oh, we also want it to be able to destroy Spreading Seas. So we definitely want Feed the Swarms. Since they're a Stoneforge deck, I think I want at least 1 Damnation. And because they have pro-black swords, I think keeping Tribute and Consuming Vapors are really important as well. Worst Fears, while good, I think we keep as a Masterminds target only. It's not really a card I want to top deck, especially with as much mana base disruption as they have. They don't play that many instants and sorceries we care about. They have a lot of Wraths and a lot of single target removal. So I don't actually think I need Collective Brutality. Actually, well, it's good versus Stoneforge. It's just another kill spell. We have a lot of better kill spells, so I actually am going to take it out. Liliana the Last Hope kind of does stuff. If she ults, she will win the game against our opponent. Liliana the Dark Realms helps ensure that we make land drops, which is kind of important. I think Wormcoil Engine's actually in the general case pretty bad here, but I don't expect my opponent is going to keep in a lot of removal because they didn't see a single creature. I think Consume Spirit needs to go into the sideboard. And if I had to look at my deck and cut the single worst card that I see, it might actually be Gonti. I don't think I need Gonti. Like, he's nice, but we have a lot of options. And we're set up quite well to fight off a creature deck, even one that's blue-based with Teferi and Flicker shenanigans. Well, we have 3 pieces of hand hate and a Cabal Coffers. Even on the draw, I think this is fine. The concern is they have Ghost Quarters, or the concern is they have Spreading Seas, but we don't care that much. They mulled to 6, they lead on Colonnade. Urborg is an excellent draw. Lead on Inquisition. Opponent has Teferi, Resto. Take Teferi. So we're going to take all of the playable cards from their hand. Opponent untaps. They play a Hallowed Fountain tapped. We untap. Draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Thoughtseize you. Opponent has Spell Snare, so we have to be careful if we cast Erebos' Intervention X1. Take Teferi. Thoughtseize. Take Resto. And now my opponent has basically nothing. They untap. They play a field, so they're ready with the field. They put Yorion into their hand. We untap. We draw another Swamp. Play an Urborg. Pass the turn. That might cause them to crack field. Float a mana, get a swamp. But that's the thing about Urborg is the rest of our lands are basic swamps. And we can play Cabal Coffers like it's a ritual, just using our land. Opponent plays their Flooded Strand. And they pass. They crack Flooded Strand on their second main for a basic plains. And they're going to Spreading Seas a swamp. I mean, it's annoying. It does lower our swamp devotion, but it doesn't matter all that much. Play a swamp. Let's go ahead and Mastermind's Acquisition. We'll get a card from our deck, and it's going to be Obnixilis, I think. I could get Liliana, Dreadhorde General, but she doesn't come down for another turn. Yeah, Obnixilis. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a tap land. Then they play a wall. We untap. We draw Damnation. Play a swamp. It is unlikely my opponent has a counterspell. They have Spell Snare. They have Yorion in their hand, but I don't know what their third card is. Uptick Obnixilis. If they want to flicker the wall next turn, that's fine. We have Damnation and we have single target removal that will kill Yorion. Otherwise, my opponent has to dump all of their mana into a Colonnade to attack Ob. And if they do that once, we can kill it the second time they do it with Intervention. Okay. So they play Yorion. They're going to flicker Wall. They're going to flicker Spreading Seas. They get those cards back. They draw 2 cards. I mean, that's pretty good. We untap. We draw Swamp. Uptick, draw another card. Play Swamp, and Damnation. Pass the turn. Opponent has Spell Snare, 3 unknown cards. I think they have to animate a Colonnade this turn. They play a Flooded Strand. They animate Colonnade. They go to combat. They attack Ob down to 3. Now, we could, in theory, play Field of Ruins in this deck, but I don't think we need to. We have enough hard removal for manlands at instant speed that I'm not worried about it. So opponent plays a Stoneforge Mystic. They get to tutor up an equipment to put in their hand. It's a sword. Alright, we untap. We draw Thoughtseize. That's a pretty timely Thoughtseize. Uptick Ob. And that's a pretty timely Baleful Mastery. Play a Swamp. Thoughtseize our opponent. Let's remove the mystery. Sword of Feast and Famine. They do have Counterspell. Take the sword from them. Pass the turn. They untap. They draw. They play a Mystic Gate, which is what they drew for turn. They animate Colonnade. They go to combat. They attack Ob. They attack Ob. So we have 6 mana. If we Erebos' Intervention, we can keep Ob alive. But let's Baleful Mastery, because my opponent may not counter that. They may take the card draw. They're going to go for the counterspell, okay? So they don't draw a card. I think we do have to Erebos' Intervention to keep this guy alive, even though we're wasting it and it's not killing the Colonnade. He's only going to take 2 and go to 2. We have a lot of good draws. We just need to find any of them. We untap. Draw Swamp. That is not one of them. Draw with Ob. I could have played Cabal Coffers, I guess. Now I will. Pass the turn. We are going to absolutely maximum this Erebos' Intervention on a Colonnade. Or not. That sucks. Alright, well. We're losing Ob this turn, but we're going to gain a trillion life while also killing a Stoneforge Mystic. And by a trillion, I mean 10. Opponent may take this... They don't have enough mana to animate Colonnade now. They have to pick up Spreading Seas and put it on Coffers. That gives us another redraw with Ob. Excellent. Yes, very good. Opponent plays another Colonnade. They play Wall of Omens for a redraw. We untap. Draw another Cabal Coffers. Uptick Ob to 4. We get Liliana, Dreadhorde General. Play a Swamp. Play Liliana. Make a zombie. So they're going to have to animate their guy and attack Ob. We can't do anything on their turn. They uptick Teferi to 2. They play a Field of Ruin. They fire up a Colonnade. They play Sword of Fire and Ice. Yeah, they kill Obnixilis. And now they have access to Spell Snare. Presumably that's their only other play here. We untap. We draw Blood Chief's Thirst. So Blood Chief's Thirst... yeah, Blood Chief's Thirst, Wall of Omens. Make a zombie. Play a swamp. Go to combat. Kill Teferi. They still, I don't think, have enough mana to animate 2 colonnades to kill Lily. They can animate 1 and equip the sword to it to get a redraw and take her to 2. They play a land. That might change the amount. Okay, they play it tapped. They do nothing. We draw Consuming Vapors. So Liliana is not going to get to ult. Go to combat. Attack them for 4. They do not block. Now I could barter in blood right now to draw 2 cards. Actually, I don't even need to do that. I can Consuming Vapors myself. We draw a card. Mastermind's Acquisition. Now we're talking. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 swamps. So I can turn 3 mana into 9 mana. My opponent has field, so I only get to do it once. Let's make a zombie and pass. I'm pretty sure I can cast Emrakul next turn. They are really ticking up that blast zone. And tick it up to 5? That's not enough. Unless they're worried about Obnixilis, I guess. They untap. They fire up a colonnade. They suit it up with a Sword of Fire and Ice. They go to combat. They're going to hit us for 6. They're not... Oh, okay, so they're going to shoot Liliana as the plan. We go down to 18. Lily goes to 7. Then they pass. We untap. Consuming Vapors. I am going to sack a zombie to draw a card. Another Obnixilis. We draw a swamp. So... I can play Cabal Coffers, I can tap Cabal Coffers, Swamp. That gives me 9 mana, and then I have 8 more. 9 plus 8 is 17. I'm very, very close, but not quite. So make a zombie. Play a Swamp. Play Obnixilis. Opponent Force of Negations, pitching Spell Snare. Excellent. That means I can cast Mastermind's Acquisition relatively safely. Let's go get a card we own from outside the game, shall we? I think Emrakul ought to work. Pass the turn. Opponent, your turn. Oh man, if I was playing this in paper, I could not keep a poker face. I should have attacked there. The life might actually matter. So opponent is going to tick Blast Zone up to 6. They untap. They immediately blow up Blast Zone. The old Ratchet Bomb for 1,000,000. They play a new Blast Zone. Oh no! If they get that Blast Zone up to 15, what will our Emrakul do? They fire up Colonnade. They suit up Colonnade. They attack us for 6. Presumably they kill a zombie. If they don't kill a zombie, I think they're in trouble. No, they're just dead. Opponent is just actually factually dead. The old hold Cabal Coffers in your hand for 900 turns while you play swamps to hardcast Emrakul. Play Cabal Coffers. Activate it. What will you do now, Batman? Oh, I never thought that we would actually do this, but we kept it in there for a reason. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 2. Watch them, like, Holy Day me and Fog. Opponent scoops. We did it! It's real! Oh boy, I'll see you guys in round 4. I gotta take a short break. Alrighty, round 4. Here we go. I actually think this hand is okay versus a few decks. It's a little bit concerning. Hopefully it's not too bad. Alright, opponent leads on a forest into the Underworld Cookbook. We draw a swamp. I'm going to lead on Swamp because I'm pretty sure my opponent's deck is black-green. And next turn, we're leaving up Erebos' Intervention. Hopefully, they can't just immediately dump out a Feasting Troll King. They drop a Cauldron Familiar and a Goose. Alright, it's a turn 2 King. That's not unbeatable, but it's pretty damn good. Alright, Baleful Mastery. Coming in the clutch. Get the hell out of here. That free spell garbage. I came prepared. Ah, what will you do now, Batman? Sorry. I don't know why I keep saying that. Look, there's just this long pause. He doesn't know what's going on. It's like, but I got the combo. I did the thing. I made the turn 2 7/6. How did he beat it? It's just still taking forever. And we're in the 4-1 bracket. Like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I cannot tell you how good this feels. And the best part is that was a top deck. Like, we totally didn't deserve that, but the Magic Gods were like, we've heard your complaints, and we are ready. Photo makes another food. Alright. Are they going to get back the cat, or are they just... Oh, they're playing the chef. I see. They get another Underworld cookbook. And they play another Underworld cookbook. We untap. We draw another Erebos' Intervention. So what we need to do now is to kill the goose. Erebos' Intervention. Kill the goose. Gain some life. Pass the turn. We can actually deal with the tokens from Urza's Saga, and if my opponent doesn't have another land, they can't even make one right now. Okay, they do have a land, so they can make a token. We untap. Draw another swamp. Excellent. Play the swamp. Pass the turn. See what our opponent does, and then we can decide what we want to do. They cycle a Street Wraith. Okay. They're going to make a Construct. So this Construct can potentially get to be like a 6/6 next turn if they dump everything into food. I think I either kill the chef... Yeah, I gotta kill the chef this turn. We gain some life. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Urza's Saga going up to 3. They make another Construct. They get the Witch's Oven. They attack us for 5. I'd really like to draw Coffers next turn, but that doesn't actually get me to Ob and Tribute. The sack outlet also is kind of a problem. Unless I draw my third Erebos' Intervention, which is very unlikely, I can't actually stop them from getting back the cat. I'm not sure if that matters, though. Opponent's going to discard to make food, discarding an Underworld cookbook. They hit us for 6. We untap. We draw Baleful Mastery. Alright. So, play Castle. This is very precarious. I don't think I can get Tribute to Hunger past the cat, is the problem. Baleful Mastery and Tribute is nice. But my opponent can, like, sack a food to get the cat in response to Tribute. Then I could Baleful Mastery a Construct, which they could then sack, and then get back the cat and sack the cat. And then they might be able to make enough foods, or they might have enough foods that we can't actually do anything. But that still might be our best bet here. So let's go ahead and Tribute to Hunger. They're going to sack the food to get back the cat. I could actually try and exile the cat, but that works out even less in my favor, I think. Okay, let's go ahead and exile the Construct. They can either have the foods to pump up the other Construct, or they can have a card. They'll probably make the food, honestly. They take the card, okay. Well, hopefully we're not dead. Opponent sacks the Familiar, drains us for 1, makes a food. They reanimate. We make them sack the cat and gain 1. I almost forgot about the Tribute. They untap. They play another Urza's Saga. That land's pretty good. They play a Lotleth Troll, which we don't actually care about the Troll. We're going to take at least 4, possibly up to 6 this turn. They discard Blooming Marsh, make a food, take 5. We untap, draw Swamp, play a Swamp, play Obnixilis. Kill the construct. So they're going to sack the construct to make foods. I will say that if I lose this game, I'll be pretty salty, because we had just about the best answers you could have to any of this situation. Opponent untaps. Urza's Saga gets its other ability. I'm also really mad they made an enchantment land that synergizes exclusively with artifacts. Opponent kills Obnixilis. Problem is, even if I draw Cabal Coffers for Ugin here, they can make enough food and make enough constructs that there's not a lot we can do. Baleful Mastery might keep us alive. Yeah, we'll just pass. Opponent makes a construct off of Urza's Saga. They sack the Cauldron Familiar. Kill the construct. If the tokens weren't colorless, we'd have the ability to Ugin them. They untap. They're going to make a construct and then get another artifact, which is probably a second oven, which makes them very difficult to beat. Pithing Needle. Alright, so Pithing Needle Obnixilis, I guess? Ugin the Spirit Dragon! Has my opponent seen my video? I know they didn't see my hand. I'm not streaming right now, am I? No. Alright, take 3. We go to 4. Untap. Opponent shocks an Overgrown Tomb. We untap. We draw a Swamp. Play the Swamp. Draw an extra card. It's Cabal Coffers. And we can't Ugin them anyway. So, I guess they get us. They get us through a million pieces of exile removal. I don't even think that deck is that great. Alright, we're definitely bringing in Leyline of the Void. We definitely want Damnation. Cling to Dust, maybe, maybe not. Feed the Swarm. I think I want Kalitas, because he's also sort of Grave Hate. They don't play that many instants in sorcery, so I don't think I want Brutality. Feed the Swarm is an easy answer to the tokens. I'm actually going to play that over Brutality. Sign in Blood, I don't think I want. Liliana seems bad. We need basically all of our hard removal. Liliana of the Dark Realms is not great. We'll drop an Obnixilis, even though he's good. I like the Edict effects. I like the ability to control my opponent. Consume Spirit can go on the sideboard. I'll drop a Thoughtseize and an Inquisition, and we'll try it like this. I would like to play first. Yeah, sure. Keep. Double Leyline power. Play a Swamp. Pass the turn. Opponent cycles a Street Wraith. Plays a Blooming Marsh. Plays the Chef. They go and get the Cookbook. Dismember. Oh, whoops. We untap. We draw a Maze Mind Tome, which is excellent. Play Urborg. Play Maze Mind Tome. Pass the turn. Opponent draws. They play an Urza's Saga. Okay. They play their Cookbook. Maybe we do need Break the Ice in the sideboard, just to have an answer to the Urza's Saga. They discard Oval Chase Daredevil, make a food, and they play a new Chef. They get another Cookbook. Alright, well right now we need mana. Swamp's fine. Untap, draw Swamp. Play the Swamp. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw. Urza's Saga gets its next ability. They play Yavi Maya. Go to combat. They attack us for 3. That's fine. And they're going to pass. We're going to draw an extra card. We get Thoughtseize. Untap. Yeah, we're going to scry. Because we're probably going to have to Baleful Mastery. Okay. Keep Cabal Coffers. We draw Cabal Coffers. Play it. So opponent can have, if they activate Urza's Saga, that gives them a 1/1, 2/2, 3/3, and they can ditch and make a 4/4. And we can Erebos' Intervention and gain that much life when they do that, and save Baleful Mastery for a later turn. And they're going to activate it on their own turn, especially if we have removal for the thing. So they make an artifact creature. It's a 3/3. They can only make one more artifact. So target creature gets -4/-4. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Urza's Saga gonna do its thing. They might get Pithing Needle for Maze Mind Tome. They could also just get another Underworld cookbook and try to make as many foods as possible. Pithing Needle. They're really thinking hard about what to put this Pithing Needle on. Maze Mine Tome. Okay, they lose their Urza Saga. Well, that Pithing Needle is pretty good because it shuts off a lot of stuff that we got in our deck. They play Wooded Foothills. They play Cauldron Familiar. They're going to hit us for 3. Nothing we can really do about that. Go to 13. We untap. We draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Thoughtseize our opponent. Take the Oval Chase Daredevil. Baleful Mastery, kill the Construct. And now we have to draw... It really sucks we can't draw extra cards. Kind of wish we didn't have 2 ley lines in our opener here. Like one more piece of good removal, or a Damnation, or a Tutor even, might be enough. Opponent plays a Swamp. They play the Goose, they get a food. They hit us for 4. We go to 7. Untap. We draw Kalitas. That is somewhat heartening. Play Kalitas. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Oh, you know what? It doesn't matter, because they can just kill him. Because they have the Chef. It deals 6 damage to itself. It has lifelink, so at least that keeps us alive. I'd really like to draw that Damnation right now. Opponent attacks us for 4. We go to 9, and we will probably be dead next turn if we don't draw a removal spell. We untap. We draw a Baleful Mastery, which we can use to stay alive. So we'll pass to our end step to see if our opponent does anything. They discard a forest to make a food. They sack a food. Okay. Kill the squirrel. Opponent does get to draw a card, though, from the activation of the ability. The ability to fetch Pithing Needle from anywhere out of your deck is really strong. Opponent untaps, they draw another card. They play a Caustic Caterpillar and hit us for 4. Come on, Damnation. And we die, exactly, because we can't crack this tome. I feel like we put up a good fight. I also don't know, like, I suspect my opponent's deck is better than I initially evaluated it, because my initial evaluation of the food deck was that it wasn't good. I was like, oh, you can probably just hate it out, but the fact that I exiled just about every single creature they played a land that was like a 7-for-1 that made like 2 7/7s every game, because I'd have to individually remove each of them, and then they would get a card out of the end of it anyway. Like, that makes that really tough. But you know what? I would much rather play and lose against that deck than time out when I should have 5-0'd. So, alright. I'll see you guys in round 5. Alright, welcome back to round 5, everybody. And we got multiple Cabal Coffers. We got an Urborg. I think we're going to keep versus whatever a Gigantha the Wellspring deck does. This might even be Tron. Opponent leads on Inkmoth Nexus into a Springleaf Drum. This looks like Affinity. Opponent started Bauble and Ornithopter. Okay. We draw a Maze Mine Tome. I'm actually going to lead on Urborg. Pass the turn. Oh, great. This card again. Opponent plays a Nettle Cyst, which is now a 4/4. We draw a Thoughtseize, which at this point might not do all that much. But you know, I'm still going to do it. Take Cranial Plating. We definitely need to get rid of Cranial Plating. Opponent untaps. They play a Spire of Industry. They hit us for 4. Something tells me we are going to have Damnations in the main. And that may not even be fast enough for this deck. We really need to draw hard removal here. Like, I need to draw Baleful Mastery. Dismember. So, play Cabal Coffers. Full price Dismember. We kill the Construct and not the Nettle Cyst, because the Nettle Cyst can just be re-equipped, which would be disastrous. But it makes an Urza's Construct on their upkeep. We can tutor out a 1-drop. So hopefully our Erebos' Intervention off of 2 Coffers can keep us alive. They get a Ginger Brute with haste. They play a tap land. We're taking 7. We untap, draw Castle Lochthwain, play a second Coffers, make as much mana as we can, and it's not enough to kill the construct. Okay? So we gotta do it on our opponent's turn to try and fog damage. Alright, opponent untaps. They draw. They play a Darksteel Citadel. They go to combat. They attack for a lot. Erebos' Intervention. Shrink the guy. Oh, I'm actually still dead exactly, aren't I? Because I go to 10 and then take 10. Yeah, there's nothing I can do here. Okay. So versus our opponent, we need the Collective Brutalities, we need the Feed the Swarms, we need the Damnations, we need the Kalitas. We may even need the Cling to Dust. And we need to get rid of anything that is going to be too difficult for us to cast or not worth it. So Ugin does nothing in this matchup, and neither does Worst Fears because we're never going to get there. We can cut an Ob Nixilis Reignited because it's too expensive. Liliana the Dark Realms is much the same way. Sign in Blood is dangerous. Maze Mind Tome is great, it's just not going to be good here. I think I can get rid of a Mastermind's Acquisition, and I'm going to get rid of another Maze Mind Tome. Well, I get rid of a Thoughtseize. No, we're on the play. I'll get rid of a Maze Mind Tome. Try it like this. We've got to hope that us being on the play can give us enough of a tempo advantage to like absorb their attackers with all of our removal. We have an Inquisition, a Consume Spirit, a Damnation, and a Coffers. The problem is we have no second land, and we would be very heavily relying on drawing one. Inquisition potentially could disrupt our opponent enough if they're relying on like a Cranial Plating, but we need to draw a land by like turn 3, and I just don't think we can. I'm going to mulligan. I like this hand a lot more. This hand is much, much better. I will keep. I will put back a Thoughtseize, and I'm going to lead on Inquisition. Opponent has Gingerbrute, Shadow Spear, Etched Champion, and Frogmite. I guess I take the Etched Champion because I'm going to have a hell of a time answering that on board. Pass the turn. Opponent plays Inkmoth, then Gingerbrute. Hits us for 1. We draw Feed the Swarm. I think we have to save this for a larger creature. Just kill their guy. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Spire of Industry, plays a Memnite, plays a Shadow Spear, Frogmite, Frogmite. Okay. We untap. We draw Ob Nixilis. Play Cabal Coffers. Kill Memnite. Using Feed the Swarm on Frogmite would suck, but we might have to do that. Opponent plays a Bauble. Animates Inkmoth. Plays Frogmite, plays Frogmite. Plays a land. Okay, they are now Hellbent. Urborg, please. They activate Bauble on our upkeep. They see we draw a Swamp. Play a Swamp. Kill a Frogmite. Pass the turn. Opponent draws a card off Bauble. We didn't have a choice in our sequencing with Bloodchief's Thirst and Feed the Swarm because we don't have 4 mana to... Great. That's what I wanted. Yep. Opponent finds another Frogmite, weirdly. Hits us for 3. We untap. We draw Bloodchief's Thirst, which does nothing. Well, I mean, Bloodchief's Thirst will kill a token, right? If I draw an Urborg, I can play Ob Nixilis and Bloodchief's Thirst. We kill 2 things. We get it for 5. I'm actually just dead to the token. There's a Swamp, so Coffers is finally at parity. I can kill 1 thing. Well, no, that's not true. I can kill 2 things. It's just I don't want to have to kill 2 things this way. So I kill the Frogmite. I could kill the Ornithopter. They make a guy, untap, make a guy, get a thing. They can equip, hit us for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're dead. So I mean, whatever. Kill the equipped Frogmite. Oh, I had exactly 5 mana? Thought I had 6. Alright, well, this is unfortunate. You would think a deck full of kill spells would actually have a pretty easy time killing all the artifact creatures that they make, but Affinity is so fast. There's no good 3 mana Wrath. Like, there's Dead of Winter and there's Bantu's Last Reckoning, but either one versus this deck is going to be not very great. They even get a Pyrite Spellbomb? Yeah. This is just highly unfortunate. Well, we did our best. Honestly, I don't think either of the decks we lost to were completely unbeatable or anything like that. Let's open our treasure chest, see if we get anything good. We get 5 play points, a Radiant Purge, and a Skeletal Vampire, which was, I believe, the cheapest card in Modern Masters in paper. Random trivia. So, we definitely have trouble dealing with Urza's Saga. That is a big problem with this deck. Because the decks that play Urza's Saga, which are apparently the food and the affinity deck, both have a million other creatures. So we can't just... most of our removal is not good against big tokens. Most of our removal is good against small creatures or individual large creatures. Because we have Edicts for the large creatures, we have... Blood Chief's Thirst, Collective Brutality for the small creatures, and Erebos' Intervention can be good against large creatures, but we have to have a ton of mana for it to be. And while Cabal Coffers does that, making a 7/7 on turn 2 is not how we actually do that. So there's a couple of options here. We can either have some kind of fast sweeper in black, which I'm pretty sure we could play like a Cry of the Carnarium, or... we could play Black Sun Zenith, which actually Black Sun Zenith as a Wrath would probably be pretty sick in this deck. I don't know if it's better than Damnation, but it shuffles back in and you could redraw it. And it's another X spell that we could dump mana into. Instead of some number of Erebos' Intervention, we could play, Killing Glare, Black X, kill a creature with CMC X, which, easily answers the tokens, but it's not like... that kind of card doesn't have the same utility as something like Repeal, where Repeal you can just, bounce a token, draw a card, and you only paid 1 mana, and it's super sick. Maybe I do need to be playing Fatal Push. My initial thought, and some people have told me that I should. I don't know if I 100% believe them, but the logic with Fatal Push is at least, it's an instant speed answer for the small creatures. Yeah, you don't have anything that turns on Revolt super easily, but... maybe just the non-revolt Fatal Push is good enough. There's no engineered plague effect that's going to be good against Affinity, because there's no... we could play Knight of Souls Betrayal, or we could play Curse of Death's Hold. The problem is those are going to come down way too late. It's versus Affinity, both games, we had trouble getting to 5 or 6 mana, and by the time that we did, even with Cabal Coffers turboing out our mana, it just wasn't enough. So I think for those matchups, we either need Bantu's Last Reckoning or some other kind of very efficient Edict. Because there's no, we don't destroy artifacts because we're mono black. Maybe splashing a color here is the correct choice for a deck like that. I was really surprised at the food deck's ability to continue playing the game, making huge creatures and stuff. I really think if any card is broken, and this is hilarious because I honestly had such a low rating of this card during spoiler season. I didn't think it was a good card, and I have been completely proven wrong. But Urza's Saga seems like the kind of card that is providing too much value for those decks. Because if Urza's Saga wasn't legal, then the food deck only has the powerful creatures from the graveyard plan. They lose the majority of their card advantage because... they basically don't have to play cards from their hand for 2 turns, while also getting 6/6s for 2 turns, and then getting a Pithing Needle, and then getting another Cookbook to make their guys even bigger. And Affinity is much the same way, because it's 2 really cheap, 8/8s, because you've dumped the rest of your hand and they're all artifacts. So I think if any card from Modern Horizons 2 should be watched... for its unfairness and potential banning, I honestly think it's Urza's Saga of the Land. But I'm not sure. So the next thing I'm going to try and do with this deck, the next time I get the opportunity to play it, I'm going to try dropping the curve. And we're going to play some scalable cards, but keeping the curve much lower. And then after that, I think I'm going to start splashing colors just to see what we can do with it. Sorry we didn't get another opportunity at a 5-0. I did try very hard today, but it just wasn't there today. Our first 3 matches were tons of fun, even the ones that went long. one of the things about this deck is it's one of those decks that actually plays Magic. Like, we get to the late game, stuff keeps happening, there's a fight for resources, we have answers, they have threats, eventually we deploy a threat, they have to have an answer, and our threats don't win the game immediately, they end the game by generating advantage for 2 or 3 turns, or we just finally get a billion mana and win with Emrakul or win with a Drain Life, and I think it's sick. I still really enjoy playing this. This is one of the funnest decks I've ever built. I'm very happy to have built a deck that is this competitive, as well as being this fun. So, you know, I hope you guys are enjoying this content. If you are, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined, and remember you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The last few times have been earlier than that. And I want you to know that you're all wonderful human beings, and I really appreciate your viewership. Bye! Hey, just wanted to give a shout out to my patrons for the month of June. If you want to have your name show up in this list, there's a link to my Patreon down in the description below. Thank you all.